Today I'm giving you my first impression on the Druid and showing you how I spent my early points on him and how to utilize them early in the game. Hopefully the Druid does get a buff mid to late game, maybe as early as starting at chapter 2 would be really nice, because he does seem to be significantly less powered than the other characters. By far, he has a serious drop off in his ability to kill quick. Now, he is a tank. He kind of just seems like a weaker barbarian with different moves, like a slightly worse barbarian. It's the same exact playstyle, just seems to be slightly not as good. Now, I did see a dev playing, and the dev had some companions that weren't the Necro ones and weren't the ones that the Druid has. And by the way, one of the things I really don't like about the Druid is that all three of the companions that are available are pretty crap and not worth putting in the 6. Like, it'd be really nice if you could do a companion build, if that was an option, or you could at least really utilize one of them. But no, I mean, none of those are going to make it into any build ever. Maybe the first 10, 15 levels, you might have the wolves, or you might have the vine, you might have both, and then you're going to take them off. You're just not going to keep them. But the dev did have like a maxed out druid that had stuff that nobody else had. He had 3 different companions that they just weren't in the game. So I don't know what the fuck he had. But this right here is how I went. Let me show you how I did it. So the Storm Strike gives us 15 spirit, so that's not bad, especially because our moves, this one you spam, and you can delete your entire essence in like under 2 seconds. That one's 35, that one's 35, or that one's 40. This one's 40 to start because these are with cost reductions as well. Nothing in this build is really cheap to use. We have no real low cooldowns. We have generally on par with the low of the cooldowns, and we have expensive moves to use. None of which seem to be really OP for the cost. But we do need to generate our essence. Now, this allows us to get damage reduction for 3 seconds after dealing damage with it. Then we also get the chance to inflict immobilize for 2.5 seconds, and more importantly, we can inflict vulnerable at a 50% chance, and we can increase that later. Moving on to the core tree. So I felt the best way to start with him early is to fully utilize Shred. Damage per second, it's his highest move early. Maybe late game, we're going to be able to utilize the poison, which you would still be using Shred. You would just be going the poison route, which you could go the poison route, playing him with the vulnerable as well. But I feel like the dash and the critical was a little better, because you do need to close the gap a little bit with him, especially early game. I felt that was a little bit more effective than doing a little bit more damage on the last attack. But both are definitely about equal. I just kind of like the dash a little better. Now, I went with maximum spirit, and basic skills generate 30% more spirit, because all his abilities, regardless of the route, you're going to need this. So after you get your core skill up a little bit and you got your defense, you're going to have to come over here, and in your first 30 points, you should definitely be getting more spirit. He is going to need it regardless of which way you play for chapter 1, because maybe in chapter 2 he gets the companions and some other stuff, but in the beginning he needs that spirit gem. It's really nice when you get the extra attack speed on him. There is a legendary perk, like if you get it on a 2-handed weapon, and it's like in the first 30 levels or so, you can get like 50% attack speed. Pretty common. You can easily probably farm out in a couple days a 25 plus attack speed, which does let him go back and forth between lightning strike or the claw. The only reason not taking the claw is because Lightning Strike generates so much more spirit, and go back and forth between Lightning Strike and Shred. So what I just showed you, I just want to note that you really do want this basic skills gain attack speed legendary aspect. Now this is off a single hand weapon at like level 20. I made a rare legendary, so then it became legendary level 16. But this was off like a rare somewhere between 15 to low 20s, and I got 26. My friend got a two-handed weapon and got 53 early on. So if you can get attack speed boost of 53 early on like a 20-ish level, then we can easily get a 100% attack speed mid-game. So it might be a little bit of a grind to get that, but once you get that, you can really utilize this build. Because once you can start going back and forth between your legendary strike and your claw, there are a couple of nice bonuses for swapping characters, shape shifting that give you more damage resistance. So that combined with some of these other legendary aspects I'll get into in a moment, actually give him pretty good damage resistance. His damage resistance is there. His debuffs are there. His offense is almost there. So I feel like he's not going to be the best Chapter 1 character, but he might very well catch up mid to late game. So right here we have the Shred, and we have that, and how we're going to go back and forth, and the extra attack speed. Moving on to the defensive skills. So Earthen Bulwark isn't bad. There is at least one legendary aspect that's pretty decent for it. Blood Owl also has about the same. I personally think healing 4% 4 times over 4 seconds for 16% is basically as good as healing 20% instantly. Use this when you get to like the 75 mark on your health bar, or the 50% health mark. And as long as you don't get instant killed, you are fine. And you heal basically the same amount. Plus you get Fortify, you get damage reduction for 4 seconds in the amount of 50% to nearby enemies. So that is really huge combined with the other ones, basically making you invincible for 4 seconds, just like Earthen Bulwark. So I went with the Debilitating Roar early, and I went with the route of healing. So basically I have Blood Howl and Earthen Bulwark combined early. I just don't get the early or extra attack speed, and I don't get the ability to have this when it's destroyed deal a little bit of extra damage. So I kind of feel like the other two good choices, this is a combination of them, at least for early game before we start seeing Paragons and what his spirit boons unlock. I kind of feel like this is a really good combination of the other two choices, making it the best choice. Moving on to our Wrath skills. So this character at the moment with this build definitely is a get in your face build. So the Hurricane is really good for the mobs. So you might be thinking, and I did use this, why not use Pulverize? Because we don't need Pulverize. Shred on that third and second swipe has such a large radius on the swipe that if we just used Hurricane or we just used Shred twice, we would kill all the enemies around us anyway. Pulverize kills them a little bit faster, but then that's one less skill that we have. Pulverize does have a decent legendary aspect as well, but I did not see the need to take Pulverize when I have Shred. So on top of that, I decided to add Hurricane to speed up taking out the mobs. So I'll use this when there's a huge mob to deal 650 over 8 seconds. I'll swing my legendary or Storm Strike like 1 to 2 times, and then I'll go into Shred. And on that Shred, I'll basically annihilate the mob, depending on how large it is. And then I'll just do a second Shred if necessary to finish him off. Also in the defensive tree, we are going to be taking this. So our Storm skills have a 20% chance to make enemies vulnerable, When we put this to level 3, which will probably be somewhere around level 30 to 35, we will be able to make our Storm Strike have a 70% chance of inflicting vulnerable. And we got to strike at least 2 times, so it's almost a guarantee we're going to inflict vulnerable. And we'll have a duration of 3 seconds for that vulnerable. Next, we're going to be taking Trample. So Trample is kind of like our dash from a rogue. It has slightly the same range. You have a pretty good range on your Trample. It does okay damage. You can knock enemies for extra damage into structures like walls. It is also really nice right here, gaining extra spirit. So every time we use Trample, that means we can use Claw one more time. You could, if it becomes available later, an overpowered build. His overpowered build at the moment doesn't really seem to be there. So I just went with the extra spirit. So I'll run my essence low by using my claw to it. I can't use it again. And then I'll either use trample so I can instantly use claw one more time, or then I'll go into storm strike and swing twice and then go back into the claw. So that 20 extra spirit plus it doing damage and knocking back and stunning some enemies for a second, canceling their move. Trample actually is pretty decent. Now the ultimate was tough to pick. I have an ability for the Grizzly Rage that allows me to play as the Werewolf versus the Werebear. Without that ability, I don't really like Grizzly Rage as the Werebear. You're just so slow that 10 seconds really doesn't give you the ability to utilize it and get the kills to extend the duration. Lacerate actually does decent damage and basically does it instantly. So that combined with its low cooldown and becoming immune, Lacerate is pretty good until you get the legendary aspect to become a werewolf for Grizzly Rage, and then it's debatable which one is best. I'm still a little bit on the fence on this one, but I'm kind of leaning towards Grizzly Rage. Cataclysm is really cool too. I didn't really see the Storm build being too good. Tried it out, couldn't really get there. So that combined with the low cooldown is why I went with Lacerate. And then after getting the legendary aspect, which not sure if it's going to make it into a final build. At the moment, early on, if you get that aspect, I'll go with Grizzly Rage. And if not, go with Lacerate. Now, also Quick Shift I took here as a final point, just because you're going back and forth. Eventually, yeah, we will definitely be putting this to 3 for this build. And we're going to have more Fortify in the build. Maybe utilize Overpowered. Regardless of which of the 3 builds you do go for, this legendary aspect is definitely top tier. Basic skills, gain attack speed. Now this is off a one-handed weapon. My friend got one off a two-handed weapon early in the game. So like, level 15 to 25. He got one that was basic skills, gain 53 attack speed. Now, just the 26 attack speed is definitely noticeable with not having it on. So let's figure we get it on a two-handed weapon early, that's 53. If we can get it mid-game, late game, we're looking at 100% extra attack speed. Getting that and the ability to go from our Storm Strike into the Claw back and forth and just shapeshift like crazy, whether we're inflicting poison or not, that is one of the legendary aspects you want. You definitely want the basic attacks increase attack speed. Now, because every one of his 3 builds also uses the basic attack speed, we definitely want basic skills grant damage reduction. This is huge too on the time. Look, just for an early level, basic skills grant 25% damage reduction for 11.3 seconds. So keep in mind, once we get to mid-game, that's going to double. Once we get to Paragon, it's probably going to increase more. So basically, it's just 25% damage reduction. I mean, maybe if you get hit before you can land the strike, you don't have it. But that time is so long going even from section to section. Why not just say plus 25% damage reduction? It's basically what it is. Now, if the lightning build does become available to really be playable mid-game, you might not want this, but whether you go poison or you go shapeshifting with shred, then your core skills deal up to X amount of damage based on the lower rank of the gear. Increases the amount of your fortify might be really good, because it looks like going this route, when we start adding in mid-game skills, we're going to have a decent amount of fortify as well, constantly getting fortify, so that gives our core skills more damage, and that shred is your main damage move, so increasing it up to 30%. Question is, if we get a little bit of fortify, how much do we get? But if we can get that gain up there, this aspect does look to be potentially very useful for both the poison and just the straight shape-shifting build. Now, I wanted to show this one as well. This is the ability that lets you become a werewolf for Grizzly Rage. So for the shape-shifting build and for the poison build, you might want to consider this. The thing that sucks, though, is Lacerate is basically as good. Now, Lacerate is instant damage, but this, you could do more damage, and you get to play as a more powerful werewolf. So it's a little bit more appealing. Potentially, we get to do more damage, and potentially we can play as a more powerful werewolf for like 20 seconds. The thing I really don't like about this is it's a little deceiving. So Grizzly Rage does say as you get kills, you gain 1 second, but there's a cap on it. Even if you kill like 30 enemies, little basic enemies with shred in under 5 seconds, you're not getting 30 seconds added on to the 10. You're not getting 40 seconds. I didn't time the exact cap, whether it's 20, 25 seconds, but we can significantly increase it from 10, and we get more movement speed to close the gap, more damage reduction, basically making us as invincible or slightly more than we were. Actually, it comes out from, I was standing in front of the butcher, definitely. When I had the Grizzly Rage going, I could just go toe-to-toe with the butcher until this ended. So that damage reduction combined with the other damage reductions I showed you for this build, even not using the lightning strike or storm strike, using this Grizzly Rage as the werewolf with this build, when you're in it, you're almost invincible. You're definitely even more invincible than just shape-shifting back and forth. I did have to do Resident Evil, so I didn't get a chance to. This is the character I just missed finishing. Also, not that many more aspects actually fit this build. It looks like the only other ones that are really good are damage reduction. Definitely damaging an elite enemy barrier. Now, we are going toe-to-toe with this build, so we got to stand in front of them. Yeah, occasionally we're going to trample through an attack. We're going to dodge through an attack, like one of the power attacks. But other than that, we're going toe-to-toe, so that barrier is huge. Now, let's see if I can show you some other aspects right here. So, some of the ones I didn't get to put on. We have Cyclone Armor. I didn't really like this. This also provides physical damage reduction. But it provides physical damage reduction already. And we have enough physical damage reduction just with the shape-shifting that we don't really need that. I mean, maybe you can make yourself even more tanky. So it might be worth really trying out with full damage reduction. But I just did not like that in there, especially where there's other ones you can add that do the same thing without having to take that skill. Personally, I just did not want to take that skill, but you have that one there. We have attacking enemies with a basic skill. Increase the damage of your next core attack by X amount of damage. This one does look to be potentially really good. We have the Liberating Roar is now a werewolf skill, which is going to be very interesting because, no, they say the Liberating Roar is now a werewolf skill. But in the skill tree, we really have nothing that significantly says that it being a werewolf skill would benefit us. But this would be for the poison build. Definitely going the poison build. You definitely would want that. Immobilizing the enemies for X amount of seconds. Now, late game might actually switch over to Bloodhound from Debilitating Strike. Early for Chapter 1, it just didn't seem to outweigh Debilitating Strike. But once we start getting our gear up and we actually get into a critical strike, attack speed, damage reduction build, which looks to be how the Druid is going to be played, Bloodhound would probably take the place of Debilitating Strike. And this would be the bonus that you would want on Bloodhound. We want our critical strike chance up. Then we have critical strikes with Shred deal lightning damage. So this just further increases its ability to take the place of Pummel and deal with the mobs, because every critical strike that lands does extra damage to the mob, allowing you to clear it more in one attack versus two, or two attacks versus three. Then we have critical strikes with core skills, increase your attack speed. So he definitely does seem to be that critical attack speed dude. And then personally, probably would be considering the heal for X amount of life per second for each close enemy as well. And skills damage increases your based off your primary resource. This would definitely be for the Storm build. You would have to figure out a way to get the Storm build as a crit build as well. And then we'd have Dancing Bolts, but that only procs on a critical. So that's going to be interesting to see if you can actually make that work. The moment the Storm build just does not seem to be there. So going to see mid to late game how that would even be done. And those are the best bonuses. You have Thorns too, although how much work is actually needed to make him a really strong critical strike, attack speed, shape-shifting, whether you're going the poison route or not. I don't think Thorns might make the cut, but I mean, until you actually get your build min-maxed, this is a very good one for the style of gameplay you're going to need to play the Druid. So personally, I don't really like him at the moment. See if he gets buffs later. But for a lot of people, if you don't mind killing a little bit slow, the Druid isn't bad. He's definitely playable. Probably going to definitely get a buff mid-game, because I did see that dev playing with companions that nobody else had. He's the only one that I seen have him, and I still don't know what the fuck he had. It wasn't the skeletons, because there was a Necro right next to him, and I was looking at the Necro's skeletons, and I was looking at his, and he had three different things, and nobody's had these three things else that was playing the Druid, and they're just not there right now. So they're obviously available mid-game or Paragon level, and just don't know how good they're going to be. But that's my conclusion. Slightly weaker Barbarian, but that's how you can build him early on and make him playable while we figure out what the end game build after getting everything unlocked in the game and the Paragon levels is going to be. This is definitely the easiest way to play him before starting to unlock the late game stuff. If you liked the video, leave a like, comment, share. It helps others find the video. I hope this helped.